Okay, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to day two. Day one I put out yesterday, and we were talking about the healing power of vulnerability. Today, we're going to actually be talking about how you can use your conflict to your benefit, how you can use your arguments, your fights, if you have the right mindset, and use it to actually grow and develop a stronger foundation in your relationship. So, these lessons that I'm sharing with you, so yesterday's, today's, and there's one more tomorrow, is going to benefit every couple, no matter what stage of your relationship you're in, no matter where you are. So today, we're turning conflict into connection, y'all. Okay, so, and I thought it was important to talk about this because most couples do believe that conflict is a sign that you're failing in your relationship. You know, they fear that every argument they have means that something's broken, and every disagreement they have is proof that they're not meant to be together. But let me tell you, conflict is not your enemy. Avoiding it is. Because think about it. So, when was the last time that you and your partner had an argument? And maybe it started out small, little tiny thing, and then it spun out of control. It escalated so quick, it just made your head spin, right? Or maybe you shut down during that argument. Maybe one of you walked away, or maybe you said things that later you regretted. But in that moment, what were you actually fighting about? Because underneath all of that, underneath the fight, the frustration, the anger, or even the silent treatment, there's a deeper message that's trying to get out. There's a deeper message that's trying to be heard. So when you start thinking about conflict as, it's not this winning or losing battle, it's about actually revealing what truly matters in that moment during that conflict. So I have a few steps. If you want to write it down, great. If you want to rewatch this video, cool. Either way, I have 3 steps or 3 different ways on how you can use your conflict to actually strengthen your relationship. And the first one is it's an opportunity to finally be heard. So how often do you actually hold in your emotions? Because maybe you're afraid to rock the boat. Maybe you're afraid that it'll start another argument or make your partner upset. So you just hold in all those emotions. And what happens is that conflict actually forces those unspoken feelings to bloop, 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 come to the surface. And it's realistically, like if you think about it this way, it's an opportunity to say, that this particular thing matters to me and I need you to understand, or I need to understand you, right? So imagine that you're in a relationship and you're feeling unappreciated, but instead of expressing that you feel unappreciated, you bottle it up until one day it just comes out as all this anger and leftover resentment from that situation over something small. So a simple disagreement about who left who left the dishes in the sink turns into you never appreciate anything I do. So I'm sure that some of you can attest to something small, seemingly insignificant, really isn't about that thing. It's about something deeper. And it exploded into something bigger because you weren't addressing what the important issue actually was or is. So when you handle your argument, your disagreement, or your conflict with care, you can turn that moment of conflict into a moment of clarity. It just allows you to be in a space to express what's truly going on, what's truly on your mind, what you're truly feeling, so you can be heard in a way that maybe you hadn't been heard by your partner before, right? Number two, learning how to fight fair. So I feel like this is important because a lot of couples don't fight fair. They're just trying to get their word in. They're trying to defend themselves. They're trying to be right, you know. And then also they're just fighting to be heard. So, but when you learn to fight fair, you have to go into the conflict with this mentality of it's not about winning. Because all conflict does not have to be destructive. And that's kind of the whole premise here. If you use it the right way, it doesn't have to destroy your connection or your communication or the love that you built. Because at the end of the day, it's not the argument itself that's harming the relationship. It's how you decide to argue. So all of the yelling and the screaming and the flailing things, the slamming cabinets, the silent treatment, the, saying mean things that you didn't really mean in the moment. You just said it because you were mad, but there are repercussions for that. So it's how we argue. So, and couples that learn to fight fair during that process they start building trust or rebuilding the trust that was broken in the relationship. They start developing spaces of, okay, I can listen to my partner. I am safe here. They do care about my emotions. So I feel valid in sharing what I'm truly thinking, what I'm truly feeling. So you're building trust in those difficult situations, in those difficult moments. So fighting fair, what that means, just to give you a few bullet points to start with, is listening without interrupting. So this is not the time to point fingers or to yell or to try to defend yourself. If your partner's speaking, take that time to allow them to get off their chest what it is that they need to share with you. Allow them space to get it, to lay everything all out on the table while you sit and listen. And it goes both ways. So listen without interrupting. 2, speaking from a place of vulnerability, like we talked about yesterday, using those I feel statements that I've talked about on many of occasions in other trainings. Being able to understand your own feelings and say, okay, I'm feeling this way, and I'm going to allow myself to be honest about how I feel. I'm going to do it in a loving way, and I'm going to share this with my partner. Speak from that place of truth, speak from that place of authenticity, so you have this space where your partner can truly understand where you're coming from, or truly hear where you're coming from. And just the third point is avoiding the blame and focus on the understanding. Because I know it's easy to get caught up in, sometimes it's hard to hear what it is that your partner has to say when they're speaking in their truth, when they're speaking how they feel and what they think. Sometimes it's hard to receive that. Because in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I got to defend myself, or I don't agree with that. And you don't have to agree with your partner's feelings. They're not there for you to agree with. And avoiding the blame is going to help you focus on the actual problem. Because when you start bringing blame into it, you get lost. You go over to the left and your problem is still over here, but you're traveling that way because you're blaming each other for how you feel. I wouldn't have did that if you wouldn't have. I wouldn't have said that if you hadn't did. And your problem's still over here. Like, are you going to solve me, or you guys just doing this now? So avoid blaming your partner for how you feel, and focus on understanding the situation. Focus on understanding why your partner said what they said, or did what they did, or showed up the way they did in a specific situation. Focus on understanding that, because when you can understand where they were in a specific moment, during that conflict, then it allows you to approach that problem with more care. Because maybe, you do feel hurt that your partner said or did the thing that they did, right? But if you can understand the reason behind what they did or why they said it, that will help you in your future arguments, because you're like, okay, well, that was hurtful that you said that. It made me feel, like you didn't love me anymore, or like I wasn't important anymore. But I do understand that you lash out because you never felt heard, and you're just trying to get your feelings out there, but we could do it in a different way. So just to give an example. So once you start focusing on understanding your partner instead of blaming your partner, you get to know them as a person a little bit more, and you get to minimize the amount of conflict that you have in the future surrounding that particular issue. Because you're like, oh, that's why. And there's a slew of reasons why we all think a certain way or why we all feel a certain way. But those thoughts and feelings always come back to influencing how we show up in our relationships and how we show up in the world. So it's important to understand who you have given your life to, who you decided to love. And that understanding helps you in the future be able to minimize the damage of future arguments, future conflicts. So imagine, instead of shutting down or yelling at your partner, you could approach the conflict like a team. Because that's what you are, right? The mindset is to work in unity. You're a partnership. You're a team. You're figuring this out together, right? It's not just on one person. It is both of your responsibilities to make sure that the relationship is growing. It is both of your responsibilities to make sure that whatever the problem is, that you're figuring it out together. Because if one of you has a problem, both of you have a problem. And that's just it. So you work as this united front to figure things out together for the sanctity of growing the relationship. So if you could approach that conflict like a team, saying, let's figure this out together, how would that change your relationship? So just think about that for a bit, or write it down. What would your relationship look like if you could adopt the mentality of, let's figure this out together? Okay, third point. So thinking of your conflict as less of a threat and how you can use it to grow your relationship. Third point, it deepens your understanding of each other. So every argument is a window into your partner's world. You two come from different backgrounds, have different experiences, right? You have different things that have happened in your past that influenced the person you became. So this argument, this conflict, allows you to take a sneak peek inside your partner's world, inside of their fears, inside to their values, their past wounds, their expectations. So instead of seeing the conflict as this threat to avoid, what if you saw it as a chance to ask your partner, or ask yourself, what are they really trying to tell me? Like, what's underneath all of this anger and this frustration? What are they really saying? Or an opportunity to ask yourself, what does my partner need right now that they aren't getting from me? Or that they aren't getting in general? Because sometimes anger and frustration doesn't come from the partner. It comes from other things going on in life. And the partner just may be at the right place and the right time, that last straw on the mound of straws on the camel's back, and they just might get the brunt of that. So ask yourself during these moments, what are they really trying to tell me? What does my partner need right now that they aren't getting? So, like, story time. It was like once I worked with a couple who constantly fought over one partner working late, and on the surface, it seemed just like a battle over, okay, who's homeless and who has the more full schedule, and nobody's here to take care of anything. You're not here to help me because you're always at work. On the surface, it just seems like a battle over conflicting schedules, right? But underneath, it was really about them feeling unloved and unprioritized. Them being always away and not considering their partner's needs and wants. So yeah, they were one of the members of the coupling was feeling unloved and unprioritized. But once they stopped arguing about the surface issue and started actually talking about the deeper thing, the deeper need, the entire relationship started to change. So if you don't take away anything from this, yeah, and shifting your mindset away from thinking that conflict is a threat, it's not. Because conflict can actually bring you closer if you approach it in the right way. Most couples don't struggle because they argue. They struggle because they never learn how to use conflict as a tool to understand their partner, as a tool for growth in the relationship, as a tool to actually express themselves, how they think and how they feel. That's why. That's where the struggle comes from. So when you embrace conflict as a chance to understand each other, you don't just learn how to resolve fights. You start building a deeper, more unshakable love. And we all want that, right? So just to go over really quick what we talked about. So turning your conflict into connection. First point, it's an opportunity for you to actually be heard and express yourself and why that particular thing matters to you. 2, learning to fight fair, not to win. Because fighting is not about winning. It's not about blaming. It's not about defending yourself. It's actually about learning how to express yourself. Listening to your partner. Being vulnerable and being authentic to your truth. And 3, just deepening your understanding about each other. Like, your conflict is an opportunity to understand more about your partner, to see more into your partner's world. So what's one thing that you and your partner can do differently the next time you you face a conflict? Put it in the comments. And drop a heart in the comments if this resonated with you. If you had a takeaway, definitely put it in the comments and let me know what your biggest takeaway from this was. And if you are in a place where when you have conflicts and you're not at a place of where you feel like you can show up vulnerability, where it's difficult for you to not blame your partner and it's hard for you to express yourself, then let me know. Let's talk so we can find out exactly what it is that you need specifically for you and in your relationship, and we can figure out what's working and what's not working for you so we can fix what's broken long term. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow in the last or the third and the last video in this series. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow.